we on? Never really, when I got the camera rolling, I just kind of lose my train of thought. So much easier to sit here and talk to myself and rehearse. So I guess tomorrow, their modern day debate is having a debate with Kent Hovind, who fucking idiot. Unreal how fucking stupid this guy is. My goal right now is to watch the debate and kind of record myself here and present a reaction to it. As a matter of fact, hold on a sec. Let me see if I need to adjust this. Flip that around. Okay, no, good. That works. I wanted to make sure I was in frame here, because that would have been a mess. I don't have to do this again. So yeah, Modern Day Debate is doing a debate tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. It's scheduled anyway. I hope that they will not have the same issues they were having today, although they didn't even seem to acknowledge those issues, at least not as far as while I was watching. There were a bunch of us in the comments saying, could you turn the volume up? Because you couldn't fucking hear it. I had the volume on my computer turned all the way up, and all I'm hearing is... that's a lot of fucking fun to watch. Couldn't hear him. Anyway, they're having this debate tomorrow. Kent Hovind versus, I don't remember who the other guy is, because it's Kent Hovind. He's he is probably the most well-known of all the people they have on their debates, and for how fucking retarded he is. He's a young Earth creationist, constantly, and again, if you ever think that I or anyone else who talks about Kent Hovind is being too harsh, you should hear the way he talks about atheists and evolution. He does. He calls us stupid. He calls the theory of evolution stupid. The theory of evolution, potentially the most well-substantiated theory in all of science. Because he doesn't understand it, and I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, he talks so much shit about atheists and evolution, and so I completely, there is no such thing as being too harsh on Kent Hovind. The man is a fucking retard. Absolute, utter fuck retard. The debate, I'm going to present a few of Kent's most common points, and honestly, what I'm about to say now might cover the entirety of the debate, because he hasn't changed his arguments in 20 years he's been doing this? He says things that are completely stupid, absolutely wrong, misrepresents the scientific theories he's arguing against because he doesn't fucking understand them. He doesn't understand any of the theories he's arguing against. He argues against his own misunderstanding of those theories, and when people correct him, he doesn't accept that what he's saying is incorrect. People will point it out and say, no, that's wrong. Here's the explanation. They explain it to him, and he just continues to repeat the incredibly stupid, incorrect things that he's been saying. and by the way, before I even start on this, I wanted to get this out of the way because I think some of you at least will probably enjoy this. I think, because Kent runs would it be accurate to call it a theme park? Dinosaur Adventureland, where he teaches, he's a young Earth creationist, he teaches, among other things, that dinosaurs and human beings lived side by side. He believes that we lived at the same time. Which means that his interpretation of the history of the Earth and the history of humanity is more or less a live-action Flintstones. That in mind, I decided I think Dinosaur Adventureland could use a theme song. So if I may, and excuse me, I'm not the best singer, so, you know, it is what it is. I think I did an okay job on the lyrics, though. Ready? Dinosaur Adventureland theme song. Hovind, meet Kent Hovind, he misrepresents Earth history with verbal diarrhea and a mail-order PhD. His fans are indoctrinated sheep. They all failed high school biology. Listening to Kent Hovind, it's a tidal wave of bullshit. That fucking nitwit. Kent Hovind's full of shit. I think that should be the theme song for Dinosaur Adventureland. Getting back to the point. Getting back to my, preview of what I think this debate's going to be, and we'll see. I'll be pretty amused to see how closely I've managed to predict at least Kent's side of the debate. And really, I mean, that's all you need to predict, because it doesn't matter what his opponent says. Kent always tries to bring it back to these several incorrect points. All of them are completely wrong, and I'll explain why. But he refuses to learn. His debates, a debate with Kent Hovind is not a debate. It's a professional attempting to teach him whatever scientific theory he's arguing against, as he just covers his ears and goes la 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 la, and believes that he knows everything about it, and then in the course of arguing against it, proceeds to demonstrate that he doesn't goddamn know shit about it. The first thing he always likes to say, he always likes to preface his, excuse me, a little bit of congestion. He likes to preface his debates by saying, well, first we need to clarify what kind of evolution we're talking about, because there are 6 kinds of evolution. No, there aren't. Evolution refers to the theory of evolution by natural selection as proposed by Charles Darwin. That's it. And the theory of evolution stands independently of all the other scientific theories you are referring to, Kent, in that evolution deals with how life diversified from its initial state, how initially we had single-celled organisms, and they diversified into modern life. And that theory remains and is unchanged regardless of how the first life actually arrived here. Whether it got here by abiogenesis, which is the leading scientific theory, whether it got here by biogenesis, whether it was created by some kind of god, whether it was shit out of the ass of a giant unicorn, it doesn't matter. Once the first life form is here, the theory of evolution takes it from there and is very well substantiated. Kent likes to try to associate it with other scientific theories that he feels are less substantiated. The theory of abiogenesis is, at this point, really mostly a hypothesis. Again, like science it's working on it. We don't have all of the information. That's kind of how science works. Again, I don't want to get too far into it, but I mean, star and planet formation, which he refers to as, I guess, I hope I've got this right. I would need to watch one of his debates. Excuse me. I would need to watch one of his debates to make sure that I've got this right, but I'm pretty sure he refers to it as stellar evolution and planetary evolution. We know how stars form. We've never, he correctly points out that we've never actually seen a star go from, from a nebula to a fully formed star. That takes a longer time than we've got. But we've seen stars at every stage of their formation. And we can put these together. You can kind of, you can put two and two together. You wouldn't need to see someone grow up from an infant to an old person to know that that's how it happens. You can see an infant, you can see a child, you can see a teenager and an adult and then an elderly person. And you can put two and two together and realize that that's how they develop. That that's how human beings age. We do the same thing with stars. We've got millions of stars at various stages of their life cycle. We know how stars form. We know how stars create energy through the process of fusion. And we know that very large stars explode as supernovas and create the elements from, I believe, iron to uranium. And that all of that matter can form an accretion disk around a smaller star and coalesce into a planetary system. We know how planets form. We know all of that. That none of that is like a hypothesis, and the Big Bang Theory is very well substantiated. It accurately, as I believe, was it King Crocoduck that Kent debated against at one point, who explained to him that the Big Bang Theory accurately predicted the existence of cosmic microwave background radiation, and not only that, but its specific temperature, and I believe a few other parameters of it, that is astonishing. It made an astonishingly accurate prediction about something that wasn't even known to exist yet. The Big Bang Theory is, again, it's very well substantiated. That is the best explanation we have for where the universe came from. Excuse me again, I'm sorry. I've got a little, like I said, I wouldn't even call it a cold, but it's some mild congestion going on. All of these theories are very well substantiated. Probably the least substantiated one would be abiogenesis, and even that one is very likely going to come together in the near future. But Kent has the idea, that, and again, I would say that none of them is probably quite as well substantiated as the theory of evolution, but he kind of likes to group all of those together, especially so he can, as so many people have pointed out, so he can gish gallop from one to the next. He'll be talking about biological evolution at one point, and in the middle of it, when he realizes he's losing that argument, he'll jump immediately back to going, you believe everything in the universe came from something that was smaller than a period on a piece of paper. Which, again, if you're going to get into the Big Bang Theory, Ken, you need to understand quantum mechanics. And You don't even fucking understand evolution, so don't start. You should, my honest advice to you, and this is purely out of concern for you, to avoid making yourself look like any more of a goddamn idiot, you should completely avoid the Big Bang Theory. Because that requires, you need to understand quantum mechanics. I mean, admittedly, I myself don't have an entirely thorough understanding of the subject. But I know it well enough to know that the Big Bang Theory is a perfectly valid explanation, and in fact the best explanation we've got for where the universe came from. But he likes to group all of these together, and so he'll be arguing against, that's why he has his concept of there are 6 different kinds of evolution. No. If you're talking about evolution, you're talking about Darwinian evolution, you're talking about evolution by natural selection, which doesn't involve the Big Bang Theory, chemical, is it called chemical synthesis, stellar planet formation, or abiogenesis. So that's the first thing he tries to say, that, there are 6 different kinds of evolution, and no, there fucking aren't. So, point number 1, 6 different kinds of evolution. You're wrong. His other favorite, and these are, I'm trying to keep these in some kind of order, but honestly, they're just going to be as I think of them. The next one he likes to say is, dogs produce dogs. And by extension, he might switch that up a little bit and go, dogs produce dogs, and cows produce cows, and pigs produce pigs, and no shit! That's exactly what the theory of evolution says. Evolution says dogs produce dogs, cows produce cows. The theory of evolution, to my knowledge, never claims that any organism ever produced anything other than its own species. You don't understand the theory of evolution because you think that fact contradicts it, and it does not. Evolution is descent with modification, as I believe that Aaron Ra, you explained it in that manner, correct? Evolution, yeah, it is descent with modification. That means that you are not a genetically identical. You're not a genetically identical duplicate of either of your parents. Oh God, there's so much to this, and how to explain it to you. All right. Let's do this in terms Kent can understand. So if anyone who's familiar with the theory of evolution, I apologize if I'm, not using the proper terminology. I have to try to do this in his terms. And if I'm not being detailed enough, because I'm not going to be detailed enough, accuracy is a causality of simplicity. And this requires simplicity. Let's use Kent's own terminology. Kent, you and I and everyone else, we'll call that humankind. Okay? So your argument that according to the Bible, which, I mean, obviously me myself, I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't give a shit what the Bible says. But okay, everything will bring forth after their kind. And that's exactly what evolution says. The word kind is not a scientifically accurate description of anything. But if that's the terminology you want to go with, then evolution says that every living thing will bring forth after its own kind. You and I and everyone else on this planet, let's call that humankind. All of humankind exists alongside apes, apes, humans are apes, but alongside, like gorillas, chimpanzees, monkeys, and we'll call that primate kind. So you've got primate kind, and within that is humankind. It's like a subdivision. All of primate kind exists alongside dogs, bears, pigs, raccoons, rabbits, in what we'll call mammal kind. All of mammal kind exists alongside birds and reptiles and, birds and reptiles, and I believe amphibians. Right? Well, they would have to be. Sorry, I'm not, those would all be tetrapods. Those all exist together under what we'll call tetrapod kind. All tetrapods exist under what we'll call vertebrate kind. All vertebrates exist alongside invertebrates under what we'll call animal kind. And you see how I've gone, up the progression here, but none of those terms, as I've progressed upward, each of those terms has encompassed larger groups of animals. But none of them have ever failed to accurately describe human beings. We are primates. We are mammals. We are tetrapods. We are vertebrates. We are animals. By definition, we are all of those things. And then animals exist alongside plants in what we'll call eukaryote kind. We're all eukaryotes, as people try to explain to you. That's when you use your argument that you believe human beings are related to pine trees. Urgh. Yes, distant relatives. We're very, very, very distant relatives of pine trees. We're like extremely distant cousins. Under the theory of evolution, and with I believe there are some exceptions to this, but as a general rule, the more closely related two living things are, the more morphologically similar they will be. And so we can use your own method to demonstrate this. If let's assume that we don't believe that all living things are related. Let's say we don't believe. Let's assume we don't believe at all that that dogs and bears are related. Okay? But answer this, if even without assuming that they are related, which is more likely to be related to a dog? A bear or a pine tree? Unless you're, deliberately being dishonest or just downright goddamn retarded, you're going to admit that a bear is more likely to be related to a dog than is a pine tree. Even if you don't believe they're related, it's the more likely possibility of the two. And lo and behold, according to evolution, bears are much more closely related to dogs than pine trees are. And you can do this with any assortment of animals you'd like. Which is more likely to be related to a frog, a fish, or a banana? Again, even if you don't believe that any of them are related, you would very likely say that the frog is more likely, or the fish is more likely to be related to the frog than the banana is. And lo and behold, according to evolution, the frog is more closely related to the fish. This is how it goes. And the idea that you can propose, that you can hold this up as an example and say these two things are, so obviously different, and ignore all of the progressive changes that led from their common ancestor to the modern examples you're using, is completely dishonest. And you know it's dishonest. It's why you're deliberately choosing things that are so far apart. Are humans and pine trees related? Yes! We're related to a single-celled ancestor that was a eukaryote. I believe there was somewhere specific I wanted to go next. I might have to edit this as I try to think of where was I going next after that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll come back to it if I need to. Let's just go with we'll try to address another one of Kent's common arguments. There are 6 different kinds of evolution. That's wrong. Dogs produce dogs. That's correct, but that is a point that is a claim that both creation and evolution make. So it's not a point for one or the other. This is actually where I wanted to go next. Because the next thing you claim when people point this out to you and explain to you that the more closely related two species are, the more closely they seem to resemble each other, when you realize you've lost that argument, you tend to then go to, well, similarity doesn't prove common ancestors. That's just evidence of a common designer. So let's go to the examples you use, and I'll explain to you why that's wrong. The examples you most frequently use are that books with similar elements have common authors, that cars with similar features have a common manufacturer, and that computer programs with common features could have a common programmer. All correct, by the way. Congratulations on at least understanding that. Here's the problem. Let's start with books. 2 books have similar elements. Therefore, we can conclude that it's likely they may have had a common author. Correct. Because we know that books come from authors. We can demonstrate that. You can see a book being written. You can go, where that's not in dispute. That no one is disputing this. Where does a book come from? Someone writes it. Very good. Cars that have similar features are likely to have are likely to share common manufacturer. Correct. Where do cars come from? They come from manufacturers. Again, no one is disputing this. You can go somewhere and you can see cars being made. Computer programs with similar elements may have a common programmer. Again, correct. You can go somewhere. You can watch computer programs being written, being coded. This analogy falls the fuck apart when you're talking about living things. Because where does a living thing come from? It has parents. It came from an ancestor. It came from its ancestors. You can trace living things' ancestors, back. So similar traits in living things do suggest that they had a common source, but the source of living things is their ancestors. Therefore, 2 similar living things likely had a common what, Kent? Ancestor. not designer. We can show that living things reproduce. We can show that living things have ancestors. Show me one. Any one. Show me one example. One of your God designing or creating. I'm not even going to limit it to living things. Show me one observable example of your God creating anything, ever. I'll settle for a rock. Show me an example. Demonstrate that your God is capable of producing a rock, let alone a living thing. Show me anywhere, anything that your God has ever created. It has never been demonstrated. Where do living things come from? They come from other living things. Where the first living things came from is irrelevant to the theory of evolution, but abiogenesis is highly likely. We know what living things are made of. We know that that their DNA is composed of amino acids. And we know that amino acids were likely produced in the atmosphere of the primitive Earth. I mean, it's not, we simply have to figure out how exactly it happened. But in all likelihood, it was not God. There is no evidence of any God ever doing anything. Which brings me to this point. This is going to wind up being a long fucking video, isn't it? Which brings me to this point. Every time throughout all of human history, and there have been a lot, we've had very many times in human history where we've looked at something and gone, how the hell did that happen? How did that get there? And the first answer that people want to give is, I bet God did it. And that answer has never been right. Never. God has a horrible fucking track record, which is pretty bad considering he's supposed to be a perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful being. There was a time in human history when we wanted to know why thunderstorms happened. And people said, you know what? I bet there are magical humanoid creatures up there that are just fucking hurling lightning bolts at us because they're pissed off. As our knowledge advanced and we learned more about the world around us, we realized how fucking stupid that explanation was. So the next time we needed to know something, when we went, hey, I wonder how living things got here. I don't know who in their right mind thought it made sense to go, you know what, I bet God is the answer this time. And I know this is where, creationists and we atheists at least agree that gods are not directly responsible for thunderstorms and other natural disasters. But this is where young earth creationists and, all intelligent people part ways. Because we know that living things, modern life, arose through the process of evolution by natural selection, and realized that God made it is exactly as stupid a fucking answer as it was when it was proposed that there were gods hurling lightning bolts at us. Stupid. Fucking stupid. Wrong answer. Wrong again. So we want to know how the first life forms got here. Again, there are people that want to claim, I bet God did it. Probably not. No. Then there are, we want to know, how did the planet get here? And again, people wanted to say, well, I bet God did that this time. this time God's going to be the right answer. And we learned how the earth formed. And guess fucking what? No. Once again, wrong answer. So we want to find out, like, how stars got there. And because creationists never learned the fucking lesson, they can't, like, pick up on this trend. They go, well, I bet God did that. Wrong. Then we want to know, like, how did the universe get here? And, like, fucking... You guys have some form of Alzheimer's because you don't realize that every time there's been a question, you've always said, well, I bet God did it, and you've always been wrong. And you go, well, how did the universe get here? I bet God did that. Wrong. And so for this reason, it's incredibly unlikely, in my opinion, that God's ever going to be the right answer. So theists don't have much of a leg to stand on. That's why it's a matter of faith. You just have to believe if that's what you want to believe, which is no good reason to believe anything. There's no evidence for God. None. The only evidence anyone ever offers for God is an explanation of something they don't understand. It's, how else do you explain this? That's not an answer. That's not evidence. That's not like, I can't explain this, therefore whatever stupid-ass explanation I can imagine has to be right. You want to cite, like, the complexity of life. Again, no, that's not evidence of design. Evolution is a process of refinement and adaptation over a very long period of time. It's not entirely inaccurate to compare that to design in a sense. We were essentially designed by our environment, by nature. In a sense, that is design. But it's not designed with any kind of intent behind it. So what else is there to address? Oh, well, I guess I could also address the idea that, people want to argue that the universe has so many specific parameters. The fine-tuning argument, it has to be, the universe had to be so finely tuned, and if these values were at slightly different parameters, the universe as we know it wouldn't exist. And of course it wouldn't. That doesn't prove it was designed. If you want to talk about, like, what are the odds that the parameters in question would be set to those specific values, it's exactly the same as the odds that they would have been set to any other specific values. This is just the universe we got. It's like taking a deck of cards and shuffling it and laying them out one at a time and saying, well, what are the odds that they would happen to come up in exactly that order? It's exactly the same as any other specific order. This is the universe we got. And the fact that it's ideal for us is, that's nothing to be surprised by. We developed and evolved in a universe that was conducive to life forming, developing, and evolving. It's simply a matter of a particular of conditions being conducive to a particular result, and that result, thereby coming about. We're looking at it like, what are the odds of this, specific outcome happening, and assuming that this specific outcome is ideal. When there's no evidence that it is by any objective sense, of course we consider it ideal. We're here. We're the product of this specific universe. If a different universe existed and produced different, whatever you might call life in that universe, then those beings would exist and consider that universe ideal. or whatever might happen in that universe would be ideal under those conditions. We are products of the universe. That does not prove that the universe was produced with us in mind. That doesn't prove that we were the desired outcome. We're the outcome by virtue of the properties of the universe. What other arguments does Kent like to make? Kent likes to talk about. Kent likes to say that fossils aren't evidence because you don't know that the fossil. This is a really funny one. You don't know that fossil had any offspring. You don't know that fossil reproduced. No shit, you fucking. How do you make that argument? What argument are you trying to make? Again, you demonstrate that you don't understand the theory of evolution. It doesn't matter whether or not a particular fossil that we have had offspring. We don't know if that fossil had children. You're right about that. It doesn't fucking matter. Because that fossil is representative of population. We don't know that fossil had children. We do know that fossil had parents. We do know that fossil existed in a population of the same species. And that some members of that species did have children. Did reproduce. Because that's what living things do. He says that wouldn't hold up in any court, which is also funny, because yes, no fossil would hold up in court as evidence. Yes, they would, and yes, they have. There have been court cases for the theory of evolution, and evolution has prevailed. And so he tries to refine that argument and says, well, not in any... I don't know what terms does he use, like in any real court, in a legitimate court, whatever argument. He wants to make the argument that the courts that have decided that fossils are sufficient evidence for evolution are somehow illegitimate. And basically what he's saying is it wouldn't hold up in a court in which he's the judge, which is what he wants to be. Kent thinks that he's an authority and gets to declare what is science and what isn't, and what does qualify as evidence and what doesn't. And Kent, you're a fucking retard. Your opinion doesn't matter. You are not an authority. You are the antithesis of an authority on science. I taught science for 15 years. You lectured in freaking Bible schools, Christian schools? You're not a legitimate educator. Your PhD is a farce. It's a mail-order fucking PhD that you got from Patriot Bible University, which is a fucking joke. You are not an authority on this subject. You don't get to decide. Fossils are evidence. They've held up as evidence in court. No, they wouldn't hold up as evidence in a court with a jury of creationists, because creationists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like you're an idiot. You have no fucking clue. You want a jury of Kent Hovinds? That's pure incompetence. No, it wouldn't hold up on a jury of people like you. I'm tempted to claim that Kent is legally retarded. But you're not fit to speak on this subject. You are not an authority on what is and isn't science, what does and doesn't qualify as evidence. You're wrong. Yes, fossils are evidence of evolution. What other arguments is he going to make? Again, he'll probably try to, shift gears to other theories. He'll probably reference the Big Bang Theory, and in an argument about evolution, he'll go, well, you believe everything came from nothing. Which isn't even what the Big Bang Theory states. What other arguments does Kent make? I wish I had like a live chat here so that, I could ask people, help me out here, remind me, what are some other things that Kent likes to say? There are 6 different kinds of evolution. No, there aren't. Dogs produce dogs. That's exactly what evolution says. Fossils aren't evidence. They wouldn't hold up as evidence in court. They are evidence. They have held up in court. Oh, evolution is a religion. It's SpongeBob imagination time. First off, even if you were correct about evolution being an unsubstantiated belief, which it is not, every unsubstantiated belief is not a religion. You can believe that, I don't know, you can believe that black holes lead to parallel universes. That's a possibility, but it's far from substantiated. That doesn't make it a religion. So even if we didn't have, and we do have, as I've explained already, the theory for evolution is it exists in the fossil record. It's observationally, that's what's really amazing to me. The theory of evolution is entirely evident just by casual observation. You can look at living things and say, humans look like they're related to monkeys. Dogs look like they're related to bears. They might be related to cats, like former ancestors of dogs. Dogs and cats might share a common ancestor. And those might also be related to, like rabbits and then hamsters and other rodents. And this holds for all organisms on Earth. You can look around and see that things are similar by simple observation. So that alone is more of an indication for evolution than it would ever be for creation. There's no indication for creation whatsoever. None. There's no evidence that God exists. So you've got that. You've got the fossil record. We've got comparative embryology, and Kent and other creationists love to throw this out there, that there were one set of, I guess, I don't remember. Forgive me for not getting this right. That there were one set of artist renderings, I think, of embryos that were deliberately designed to look similar, and he argues, that was put forth as evidence to fake evidence for the theory of evolution. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at embryos of closely related species, as they develop, they're very similar. There's genetic evidence or genetic markers in DNA that indicate that different species are closely related. The theory of evolution is very well substantiated. It's a fact. There's no way around it. The theory of evolution is fact. But even if it weren't, it still doesn't qualify as a religion. A religion is not just, any idea, any belief that you commit to that has no evidence supporting it. Like I said, you could believe that black holes lead to alternate universes. That doesn't make it a religion. That doesn't necessarily, you don't follow the same practices that define a religion. But regardless, that doesn't even matter, because again, evolution is well substantiated. It's not even an unsubstantiated belief. So evolution is a religion. Wrong again. No, it absolutely is not. Evolution is not a religion. It is a scientific theory and a proven fact. I mean, that about covers it. I believe I've covered most of Kent's points. There may be a few that I'm forgetting. So, without further ado, and what I'm going to try to do here is record my reaction to the debate, to the debate. Sorry, blah. The reaction to the debate, and kind of play that. Right now, I'm intending on doing like a picture-in-picture thing, and I may mute or turn down the volume of the debate as I'm talking. I will, however, link to the debate in the description if this even goes as planned. If they don't have the same issues with volume they had before, because if I can't hear it, I'm not going to respond to it. And if I can properly edit it. This is just my intention right now. But if this goes as planned, I will link to the video of the original debate, so that if there's anything that I'm, lowering the volume on or talking over, you will be able to, I'll link to it so you can go watch it if you want to, and provide the full context. But, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut this video off, and then tomorrow I'll start recording as I'm watching the debate. It's scheduled for 8 o'clock. I'm going to try, let's just see how it goes.